Our movie begins with Officer Paul in 1999 in Louisiana at a care home watching the movie Top Hat and starts crying, so his colleague Ivy comforts him. He tells her that the movie reminds him of his life in 1935 when he worked as a corrections officer at Cold Mountain Prison. He tells her that he was in charge of the condemned chamber and supervised all the executions that took place there. The chamber was called the Green Mile because its floor was a light green color. We goes back to 1935, where Paul is a young officer with his assistants Dean, Harry, and Brutus Brutal Howell. They receive a new inmate, John Coffey, the largest prisoner they have ever seen. They visit his cell, and then Paul goes back to his office to read John's file, which states that two girls, Katie and Cora, disappeared from their home, and their father, Klaus, found blood on the doorstep. He starts searching for them with the townspeople, and eventually finds them dead on John's lap creasing, and says he couldn't help them. He was arrested on charges of raping the two girls and submitted his report to the prison guard, whose wife Melinda suffers from very rapid seizures, requiring him to only take care of Pierce, because he is the governor's nephew and does not want any problems with the governor. He is actually leaving soon because he has obtained an administrative job at a private psychiatric hospital. Once in the office, they notice a mouse go inside the prison and watch it until it enters the isolation room. They all leave the room to catch the mouse, but they fail, and the next day he appears in front of Percy, he chasing him trying to kill him. But he fails and enters the isolation room again. Paul and Peter are watching him as he comes out of the room again in the hope of catching the mouse. He fails. Paul tells him to reorganize the room again and continues the procedures for Arlen's execution. As part of the execution procedures, they stage a theatrical performance on the prisoner to make sure all the procedures are correct. Percy attends the performance and learns how to operate the electric chair from the officer, asking why they put a wet sponge on the prisoner's head. And he understands that it conducts electricity quickly to the brain so that the prisoner dies without feeling the pain of the electricity. The execution of the prisoner is done. Percy bids him a humiliating farewell, and that makes Paul angry, but he telling him that his administrative job is waiting for him to leave the prison. Percy tells him that he will leave prison on the condition that he carries out one execution, but he leave him and return to his office. He heard laugh coming from the prison rooms and found Dale playing with his mouse, whose name was Mr. Jingles. After that, Hal call him to his office to give him informed for a new prisoner named William, who has caused a lot of trouble, including killing 3 people in a robbery. One of them was a pregnant woman, and Paul asks him about his wife's condition. He told that the tumor is severe and cannot be treated. When he returned home, the pain became severe, and he got up from the bed so that his wife would not wake up. The next day, he will inform his wife to make an appointment with the doctor because the pain is very severe. After that, he will go to the prison to receive the new prisoner. His name is William, and he tries to escape, but the guard hits him on the head and takes him to his room, and they all leave to finish the administrative work with the prison warden. They let Paul alone, but he collapses in pain. John Coffey see that and calling him so he can help him. And John hands him over and holds the place of pain and heals him, and tell Paul, "Now I help you." Paul returns to his wife and tells her he no longer feels pain. They go to see William, but he behaves cruelly towards them. They took him and put him in solitary confinement. The time for Dale's execution comes, and he tells him that the mouse will stay with them and they will not take it away. And when he comes to their hands, the mouse Percy stomps on him and kills him, and Dale keeps crying, but John takes the mouse and holds it, and after that, the mouse comes back to life, and Dale is happy that his mouse is still alive, and all the guards being angry from Percy. Then they go to Dale's execution, and Percy is responsible for putting the wet sponge on Dale's head, but Percy does not wet it and places it on Dale's head when it is dry. The execution is carried out in the worst possible way, and Dale is subjected to great torture. And the entire prison staff knows that Percy intended to single him out, and Bruto get angry and start hit Percy. And then Hal intervenes and finds out what happened, but he doesn't do anything for Percy, because his relationship. The next day, Paul and his wife go to see Hal's wife, and know she go more weekly. Paul holds a meeting at his house, and all the members of the prison are there except Percy. He tells them that he wants John to be released from prison to help Hal's wife. They agree, and go in the night, and put William to sleep, buy a drug in his drink, putting Percy in prison, and leaving. They took John and go to Hal's house, and Hal get out with a gun, thinking they are thieves, but they tell him that they come to help his wife, and let John go to her. John gets close to her, and is able to heal her. They return to the prison, and go to Percy, and tell him that the time has come for her to leave the prison. But John holds him and tells him why he was tired, and makes him look like a hypnotist. He goes to the cell belonging to William, and pulls out his gun and shoots him. And John says to Paul that I punished both of them by themselves. He holds the hand of Paul and show him the whole truth. And Paul knows that William was a friend of the fathers of the 2 girls who died, and he was the one who impregnated them and let them on the river. And when John saw them, he tried to help them like the mouse and Hal's wife, but he couldn't. Investigations into William's murder expanded, and Percy go to a osteoporosis hospital, but as mental patient, and Paul knew that John was innocent and offered to help him escape. But he refused and said, "It's better for me to die because I'm tired of the world." Paul asked him if he had any last wishes before he dies, and he said he wanted to watch a cinematic movie, and Paul let John watch Top Hat movie. The next day came the time for John's execution, and while he was on the electric chair, he asked Paul not to cover his face because he was afraid of the dark. The execution was carried out, and that's how the story that Paul told his friend at the care home ended. He was surprised that he still hadn't died, because the events took place in 1935, and now it's 1999. He tells her that he is still alive because of the miracle of John's recovery, and he's still alive until all people he loves die on his eyes. He and Mr. Bangles tell her that this could be a punishment for him leaving John to die and wishing for his death to see all his loved ones. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.